Good afternoon. Please be seated. The honourable member from Roblin.
Speaker.
The honourable member for Roblin on House business.
Honourable Speaker, I seek leave to allow the Opposition House Leader to call Bill 221, the Earlier Screening for Breast Cancer Act, to a committee of this House before the end of the first session of the 43rd Legislature, no later than October 30th.
Is there leave to allow the Opposition House Leader to call Bill 221, the Earlier Screening for Breast Cancer Act, to committee of this House before the end of the first session of the 43rd Legislature, no later than October 30th? Is there leave? Agreed. Leave has been denied. Routine proceedings, introduction of bills. Committee reports. The honourable member for Riel.
Honourable Speaker, I wish to present the 8th report of Standing Committee on Social and Economic Development.
The honourable member for Lodge. Nope.
Your Standing Committee on Social and Economic.
Dispense. The honourable member for Riel.
Honourable Speaker, I move, seconded by the Honourable Member for Kirkfield Park, that the report of the committee be received.
Been moved by the honourable member for Riel, seconded by the honourable member for Kirkfield Park, that the report of the committee be received. Is it the pleasure of the House to adopt the motion? Agreed and so ordered. The honourable member for Lodge-Modier.
Honourable Speaker, I wish to present the second report of the Standing Committee on Justice.
Your Standing Committee on Justice presents the following as its second report.
Dispense. The honourable member for Lodge-Modier.
Honourable Speaker, I move, seconded by the Honourable Member for Tuxedo, that the report of the committee be received.
Been moved by the honourable member for Lodge-Modier, seconded by the honourable member for Tuxedo, that the report of the committee be received. Is it the pleasure of the House to adopt the motion? Agreed and so ordered. Tabling of reports. The Honourable Minister of Advanced Education and Training.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I'm pleased to table the annual report of the Department of Advanced Education and Training for the fiscal year of 2023-24, as well as the annual reports for the year ending March 31st, 2024 for Brandon University, Red River College Polytechnic, Research Manitoba, University College of the North, Université du Saint-Boniface, University of Manitoba, and University of Winnipeg.
Further tabling of reports, the Honourable Minister of Environment and Climate Change.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I am pleased to table the following annual reports for the fiscal year ending March 31, 2024. First, the Department of Environment and Climate Change. Second, the Manitoba Hazardous Waste Management Corporation. And third, the Report of Efficiency Manitoba.
Thank you. How are you?
Ministerial statements. The Honourable Minister, Economic Development, Investment, Trade and Natural Resources.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. It is my pleasure to share the vision and goals of the newly formed Punjabi Chamber of Commerce and Industry with the province of Manitoba. The Punjabi community has been part of our province since the 1960s, contributing significantly to both its economic and cultural landscapes. Over the years, Punjabi-owned businesses have achieved remarkable success in a variety of new and diverse industries. Now, the community will have a dedicated platform to celebrate these accomplishments and an organization that collaborates collectively with the government in addition to representing the community with a broader business landscape. This is how the Punjabi Chamber of Commerce and Industry was formed. A few members of the Punjabi business community came together to bring this vision to life, resulting in the establishment of this organization. Their vision and goals were clear: to provide a platform for internal networking, engage in collective advocacy, collaborate with government, support truth and reconciliation. With these set out and clear mandate from its membership, I have no doubt that the Punjabi Chamber of Commerce and Industry will have an illustrious future advocating for its members in the years to come. I am happy to acknowledge some of the folks who are in the gallery joining us today from this organization: Amrit Singh Dhillon, Varinder Singh, Dalbir Singh Bala, Randy Brar, Gurjant Singh Dhillon, Jay Jaskaran Sodhi, who are here with us today. I'm delighted to mention that the Punjabi Chamber of Commerce and Industry will be hosting an MLA appreciation dinner this evening in the Golden Boy Room starting at 4:30 p.m. We, as members of the Legislative Assembly, celebrate your accomplishment and wish you well, and know that what you have achieved so far is only the beginning. I'll invite all members to join me in welcoming the members from the Punjabi Chamber of Commerce and Industry to the Legislative Building today.
The honourable member for Red River North.
Honourable Speaker, I'm honoured to rise today to recognize the invaluable contributions of the Punjabi Chamber of Commerce and Industry in Manitoba, highlighting their unwavering commitment to fostering sustainable growth and prosperity in the Punjabi business and communities across this great province. This organization plays a vital role as advocates for entrepreneurs, promoting diverse economic development that not only serves the Punjabi community, but also benefits all Manitobans. Their efforts are significant assets, providing tangible resources that contribute to the continued success and reliance of the Punjabi communities throughout Manitoba. Moreover, the Chamber's focus on creating opportunities for professional development and facilitating network collaboration within the Punjabi community uplifts and broadens our understanding of what it means to thrive together. This perspective is crucial for shaping the future of our great province, ensuring that every voice is heard and valued. Their extensive network encompasses a wide range of businesses, industry associations, and nonprofit organizations, all united in their mission to cultivate a vibrant and thriving business environment. This collaboration seeks to foster inclusivity and innovation, making Manitoba a more welcoming and dynamic place for all. As an organization dedicated to growth, professional development, and networking, the Punjabi Chamber of Commerce elevates the meaningful contributions of an active community. Their work is integral to the overarching goal of positioning Manitoba as an appealing destination for living, working, and conducting businesses, enriching our province for current and future generations. And I, too, on behalf of the official opposition, would like to ask everybody to join us tonight between 4:30 and 6 o'clock and celebrate the Punjabi Chamber of Commerce. Thank you.
The honourable member for Tyndall Park.
Honourable Speaker, I ask for leave to respond to the Minister's statement.
Does the honourable member have leave? Agreed. The honourable member for Tyndall Park.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Chambers of Commerce bring together coalitions of businesses across all sectors, associations, and industry organizations who all share a commitment to address challenges in our communities and overcome barriers to growth. Punjabi Canadians account for nearly 3% of Canada's population, and Punjabi businesses thrive here in Manitoba, and having a Chamber of Commerce here in our province will help unite the community and beyond by offering events, programs, opportunities, and creating an environment to strengthen businesses and careers. Honourable Speaker, this is all while providing programs, advocacy, networking, events, business services, and encouraging collaboration to fortify and pave the way forward for Punjabi businesses within Manitoba's business community. The establishment of the Punjabi Chamber of Commerce and Industry is a local chamber, and I'd like to welcome them here to the Legislature today. Thank you, Honourable Speaker.
Before moving on to member statements, I would like to draw the members' attention to the public gallery where we have seated from École Julie Riel, 22 grade 6 students under the direction of Stephanie Gagon. The group is located in the constituency of the Honourable Member for Riel. Welcome. Member statements. The Honourable Minister of Families.
Good, Honourable Speaker. I rise today to recognize the extraordinary Winnipeg Blues women's basketball team. The team achieved something truly remarkable this summer, winning the championship title and solidifying their place in the history of our province's sports. Their journey to the championship was filled with unforgettable moments, none more impressive than their gold medal game, where they faced a 14-point deficit with only 5 minutes remaining. In what can only be described as a display of heart, resilience, and teamwork, they rallied together and managed to outscore their opponents, ultimately winning by just 2 points. Their perseverance was inspiring. The road to victory wasn't without its challenges. Throughout the season, players faced injuries, including bad ankles and some mental health like panic attacks. Yet despite these obstacles, the team never wavered. They demonstrated the true meaning of unity, trust, and resilience, pushing themselves to the limit, not just for personal glory, but for one another. Watching them fight every point, overcoming every obstacle with grit and grace was a testament to their unbreakable spirit. Their courage, tenacity, and sheer willpower of these young women have shown nothing is short of extraordinary what they accomplished this season. I also want to extend a special congratulations to head coach Russ Patterson, assistant coach, and also assistant coach Alexandra Patterson, Coach Patterson's daughter, whose leadership has been instrumental to the team's success. Their support, strategy, and commitment played a crucial role in shaping this incredible team into champions. I ask my colleagues to help me honor and celebrate the Winnipeg Blues for their monumental achievement. Their victory is not only a triumph for their team, but an inspiration for all of us. Congratulations to these amazing athletes on their championship win. You have made us all immensely proud, and I ask for leave to have my members' names in Hansard. Congratulations.
Hear, hear. The Honourable Member for Morden Winkler.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Today, October 15th, is International Rural Women's Day. As a rural woman myself, I am honoured to celebrate the many achievements and contributions that rural women make in our province, our communities, and our homes. Women in rural communities are the backbone to many businesses, organizations, and nonprofits, as well as often being the primary caregivers for their families. Despite their crucial roles in agribusiness and food industry, many rural women encounter challenges that hinder their full participation with less access to land, credit, and other resources. Recently, I was appointed to the Women's Commonwealth Parliamentarians Regional Steering Committee, which I'm honored to be part of and represent women in politics. As a woman, I believe it's important that we encourage female representation, foster relationships, and discuss action on gender-related issues. International Women's Day recognizes women's contributions to agriculture, food security, and sustainable development. Today, I would like to highlight 3 rural women from my constituency of Morden Winkler. Helping lead the way in Manitoba beef producers is Mary Prazek, a director and producer. Mary is dedicated to representing the interests of beef producers through advocacy, research, and education, with a mission to strengthen and enhance beef industry in Manitoba. In a male-heavy world, Mary is only one of the female directors out of 14 districts. Tricia Thiessen, and her husband run a third-generation family farm corporation. Her dedication to hard work ensures that their operations run smoothly. A former nurse turned farmer, Tricia actively volunteers in our community on school council. She sits on various committees and is a youth leader in her local church. Her favorite part of living in rural Manitoba is the tight-knit sense of community. She loves having her family involved in the farm, including her 4 teenage children. Leah Cool.
Member's time has expired. Is there leave for the member to finish her statement? Leave has been granted.
For the Southern Manitoba Potato.
The honourable member for Morden Winkler.
Sorry, thank you. Leah Cool is part of the Southern Manitoba Potato Family Farm. She has a supportive role in the farm, bringing meals to the field, helping move trucks and equipment, and helping with staff events, as well as being a listening ear regarding all business. She is also a nurse by trade and loves being involved in the community. I would like to thank all women in rural Manitoba for your endless contributions. Today, we celebrate your resilience and dedication. Happy International Day of the Rural Woman. I would like to ask my colleagues to please join me in thanking these 3 women that are here online with us. Thank you.
The honourable member for Kildonan River East.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Seniors are the backbone of Manitoba communities. They are volunteers, leaders, and actively engaged community members. Nowhere is this more on display than at Springfield Seniors Living. On Saturday, October 5th, 2024, just a short drive north of my own constituency of Kildonan River East, I had the honour of attending their President's Gala. It was held at the Elmwood Golf and Country Club in the great constituency of Springfield-Rashad, where I attended on behalf of the most popular Premier in Canada. I'm not the MLA for the area, but I'm happy to work with and advocate for more Manitobans in my neighbouring community. The Outstanding Volunteer Award was presented to Jane and Alan Burpee, the parents of the one and only David Burpee, otherwise known as Ace Burpee from Hot 103.1 FM. Throughout the evening, it was obvious that the Springfield Seniors Living's commitment to community is deep-rooted. With programs like the Congregate Meal Program, they provide seniors with living spaces that address daily living needs and positively influence their quality of life. It was so nice to make new connections with these open and welcoming folks who have already started to reach out to our Kildonan River East team for follow-up and are happy to work with our new NDP government because of our commitment to healthcare, seniors all across our great province. I may not be your MLA, Springfield-Rashad, but I'm the MLA for Kildonan River East right next door, and my door is always open to you. Speak soon, neighbours, and I'll see you at the Chicken Days in June.
The honourable member for Riding Mountain.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Dr. Alan Preston has spent his career advancing agriculture, imparting his infectious love for the industry and doing his utmost to make rural Manitoba and Canada a stronger and more vibrant place. That's why it was only fitting that the lifelong Hamiota resident was inducted into the Manitoba Agricultural Hall of Fame in July. After graduating high school, Dr. Preston attended university and then was accepted into the Western College of Veterinary Medicine in Saskatoon. Following graduation in 1974, he worked in Winnipeg for a year before returning to Hamiota to practice veterinary medicine and work with his dad on the farm. Dr. Preston didn't just help animals. He immersed himself in the community and took a leadership role in most community initiatives, including guiding the Hamiota Agricultural Society, chairing the Hamiota Community Foundation, being an active 4-H leader, and managing a AAA hockey club. Dr. Preston was also active in industry organizations. He was the president of the Canadian Simmental Association and was involved in many livestock organizations, including the Beef Science Cluster Advisory Body and the Westman Opportunities Leadership Group. After 20 years, chronic arm and shoulder problems caught up to him, and Dr. Preston moved on to work with Manitoba Agriculture, first as manager of veterinary field services, then chief provincial veterinarian, and eventually Assistant Deputy Minister of Agriculture. He also tackled some very major and difficult assignments important to the health of the agriculture industry and the province. He was a bovine tuberculosis coordinator and the chair of the Assiniboine River Basin Initiative. Dr. Preston was awarded the Lieutenant Governor's Medal for Excellence in Public Administration in Manitoba in 2008 and the Queen Elizabeth II Platinum Jubilee Medal in 2022. Please join me in congratulating Dr. Alan Preston, who is watching online today, on his distinguished career in the agricultural industry and on his induction into the Manitoba Agricultural Hall of Fame.
Here, here. The Honourable Member for McPhillips.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Today I rise to recognize McPhillips constituent and outstanding member of our community, Frank Soja. Frank is a coordinator for Fish Winnipeg, an organization that has for 25 years brought inner city youth out onto the Red and Assiniboine rivers to fish, an experience that most would not otherwise have. The program is free of charge and provides free transportation for youth. Fish Winnipeg has been recognized for their excellence and meaningful contributions to the inner city communities here in Winnipeg by various levels of government. They are a part of Fish Futures Incorporated, which is in the year 2000 received a Canadian Recreational Fisheries Award in Ottawa. In 2013, they also received the Mayor's Volunteer Service Award for their work with youth. Recently, they were grateful to receive a grant through Manitoba Liquors and Lotteries to replace their van. With this support, Frank and Fish Winnipeg continue to provide transportation to young anglers free of charge. As an arm of Fish Futures Incorporated, an organization that aims to improve water conservation and maintain freshwater fisheries and habitats here in Manitoba, Fish Winnipeg is also passionate about conserving our waterways. Over the years, interest in this program has only grown. Frank and Fish Winnipeg have become an important part of the community here in Winnipeg, and I hope we continue to see Frank's work with Fish Winnipeg grow over the next few years as they continue to foster inner city youth interest in fishing. So I ask that the House join me in thanking Frank and his colleagues for their work with Fish Winnipeg and to congratulate them on 25 years of excellence in our province.
Oral questions. The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. And it is interesting that when members stand up and talk about chicken days that are held in the riding or the constituency of Springfield-Richot, it's unfortunate that the member stands up today talking about some form of golf course that doesn't even exist in Manitoba, Honourable Speaker. It's harder these days, Honourable Speaker, to do business under this NDP government. The number of incidents in the first quarter of this year was worse than previous annual totals. We've seen 7-Elevens and other businesses boarded up. Matter of fact, 7-Eleven is closing almost a quarter of their stores right here in Manitoba. Under this Premier, Honourable Speaker, there's more people that are hungry, there's more people desperate and they're stealing, and community businesses are closing down for good. Businesses are still operating in Manitoba with increased security expenses. I ask the Premier, who should bear those costs for those expenses, Honourable Speaker?
The Honourable First Minister.
I'll get to the meandering question in a second, but I want to begin by acknowledging Cam Blight. Cam, you're a good man, and it's been an absolute pleasure to serve alongside you these past few years. I learned a lot from both your perspective as a municipal leader, but also from your leadership role at the AMM. I truly, and on behalf of our entire government and the people of Manitoba, wish you all the best in what's next, and hopefully this next stage is very meaningful for you. Of course, we know that business is great in Manitoba. Inflation is down because we cut the provincial gas tax. We're a business-friendly government, and we're on the side of workers too.
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition on a supplementary question.
Honourable Speaker, last November, the Canadian Federation of Independent Businesses, restaurant industry, and other groups called for the new NDP government to provide financial relief from theft and vandalism. Manitoba businesses would like to see them stop theft and vandalism too, and to support businesses through these difficult times. A single break-in can cost tens of thousands of dollars. Security upgrades we know cost tens of thousands of dollars. And the NDP government has not adequately addressed the affordability crisis that's driving crime and theft. Businesses are still calling for help, and some are simply closing their doors for good as the NDP's failure to act. Will the Premier apologize to the communities that are losing their businesses in their inaction? Honourable Speaker.
The Honourable First Minister.
Well, our team is very happy to be working for you, the people of Manitoba. And with all due humility, I would say that 1 year in, our approach is proving results, certainly more than the PCs ever did during their failed 2 terms. We can look at the macro level indicators. Today, Statistics Canada said that inflation is 0.8% in Manitoba. That is below the Bank of Canada target rate. So what we're saying to the Bank of Canada, red flashing light for Manitoba, please cut interest rates.
That's right.
And when you talk to small business owners themselves, what do they say? Well, they say that our Attorney General has been doing very good work with his retail theft initiative. So whether you're talking to the small business owner or whether you're talking to the economists who see the system-wide trends, progress is coming, things are back on track here in Manitoba, and more good days lie ahead.
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition on a final supplementary question.
Honourable Speaker, the fact is the closure of 7-Eleven stores and other businesses only are making things worse for those who rely on these types of businesses close to their homes. This is a big deal to many families. Easily accessible to milk, bread, fruit, and other basics have been ripped away from tens of thousands of Winnipeggers. The government should be looking into urgently supporting businesses to stop this crisis and its unintended consequences. The NDP seem to find money for vanity trips with their ministers and staff. They find money for the Premier's daily $17 salad, but they make businesses compete with homeowners for doorbell cameras that doesn't actually meet their needs, Honourable Speaker. Supporting businesses is supporting Manitobans, a fact that this NDP government is failing to understand. Honourable Speaker, will the Premier apologize for misleading Manitobans on the growing food prices, insecurity, and the decline to community safety?
The Honourable First Minister.
And I quote, "On behalf of 7-Eleven Canada, I would like to applaud you and the Manitoba government for the policy commitment to support safer communities through strategic investments in the Retail Crime Task Force. The return on investment will be measured in terms of safe and secure communities, employees, and customers." End quote. From the Canadian Federation of Independent Businesses, and I quote, "We appreciate that this year's budget includes payroll cost relief measures for small businesses." Now, I appreciate that all of the validators that would not stand beside the members opposite are in fact thanking our government, our ministers in particular, for taking important steps to make your life more affordable, make your community safer. I will remind the members opposite that job one for our government is fixing health care and repairing the damage they caused by years and years of cuts.
Good
job.
I would ask the First Minister if he was quoting from a private document, if he'd table it, please. Honourable First Minister.
Happy to table the documents that dunk on the member opposite.
The Honourable Member for Brandon West.
Go ahead. I would like to begin my question by first recognizing that today is the first day for the new Chief of Police at the Brandon Police Service. And I would like to give him a warm welcome to Chief Tyler Bates on behalf of myself and our entire PC caucus.
Hear, hear.
Chief,
hear, hear. Hear, hear.
Chief Bates brings with him a wealth of experience over 3 decades of dedicated law enforcement service, and I know he will complement the Brandon Police Service. So, Honourable Speaker, Will this Premier commit to working with Chief Bates to make our streets and communities safer, or will he simply revert to his old ways and target the new Chief of Brandon Police by blaming him on the rising crime under
Time
this
has expired.
government?
The Honourable First Minister.
We know that the issue of public safety is one of the most sacred responsibilities that we have in government, and that is why our team, under the leadership of our Attorney General, has been bringing forward numerous measures to hold people accountable. But at the same time, under the leadership of our acting education minister, we also have a universal school food program, which is going to make our community safer and healthier for generations to come. It's a comprehensive approach. When it comes to the Brandon Police Service, I was very proud as the minister responsible for Indigenous reconciliation to provide a very small grant to provide orange patches leading up to Orange Shirt Day for the BPS. Again, it's almost a grant too small to mention. It's my hope that that'll be a conversation starter to build linkages between Indigenous peoples, the Brandon Police Service, and the broader community. It truly takes all of us to build the Manitoba that we want together.
The Honourable Member for Brandon West on a supplementary question.
Honourable Speaker, this Premier promised to Manitobans that he would make streets and communities safer, but not only have stores been forced to board up the windows and close down, but employees are starting to take vigilantism action. What? Manitobans are fearful of making trips to their local community stores. When will this Premier deliver on his promise to all Manitobans to make our streets and communities safer?
Hear, hear.
The Honourable First Minister.
I welcome the accountability questions. They're always rightly directed towards me. The credit, though, for the progress we're seeing on public safety belongs to the ministers of the Crown. That includes the Minister of Families, who is doing generational change to break the generational curse that too many young people in our community have been handed. The credit goes to our acting education minister in that direction, rather, who is making important strides to ensure that every child in Manitoba can stay on a path to post-secondary instead of a pipeline to prison. And then, of course, we have the Attorney General, who was there after the summer, able to point to numerous successes, such as the retail theft initiative, towards the increased foot patrol presence through our partners like Sabe Peace Walkers and DCSP. Again, this is a Team Manitoba approach. We're working together to address root causes, to address immediate needs in the community, and we're showing results for you, the people of Manitoba.
The Honourable Member for Brandon West on a final supplementary question.
Honourable Speaker, this Premier and his Justice Minister have used buzzwords and Band-Aid solutions that have made for our communities to be less safe. We've been waiting for a long-term plan to make Manitoba safer. In March, the Winnipeg Chief of Police raised concerns about violence using long-edged weapons, and it took this minister 7 months to bring forward legislation that will still require lengthy consultations before it even comes into force. Can the Premier share today when Manitobans will have a concrete plan with long-term solutions to reduce crime and protect all Manitobans?
Hear, hear.
The Honourable First Minister.
Manitobans got a plan when I shared it with them at Canadian Mennonite University in the lead up to last year's election. That's right. It was the first time there was an adult, comprehensive approach to public safety tabled, because certainly none was forthcoming from Heather Stephenson and the PCs. That's right. So when we talk about tough on crime, tough on the causes of crime, that means that we are investing in school food programs and recreation facilities to keep young people on a positive path. But we're also investing in law enforcement. For instance, this year, Brandon Police Service's urban policing grant went from $5.4 million to $7.4 million. I realize the reason why he's so upset in the chamber every day is because he's mad at himself for not sticking around for another year so that he'd finally have the resources in Brandon to do the right thing by the people of that great Manitoba city.
The Honourable Member for Roblin.
We know that one of the first things the NDP government did is cut surgeries and diagnostic tests for Manitobans. They fired the Diagnostic and Surgical Recovery Task Force. They slashed surgical options for Manitobans who were willing to travel. They reduced surgeries and diagnostic tests here in Manitoba. by refusing to work with private providers and canceling existing contracts. Now, they're even turning down funding from communities like Portage la Prairie that are willing to expand diagnostic capacity. As a result, Manitobans are left facing longer wait times for both surgeries and diagnostic tests. Why has the Minister of Health failed to address the growing backlog of surgeries and diagnostics that has worsened under their watch?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Minister of Health, Seniors and Long-Term Care.
Our government has been listening to Manitobans who are making it very clear that they want more access to surgeries and diagnostics in their own province, close to home, where they can recover close to their families and in their own communities. Under the previous government, they spent more money sending people to the United States of America out of country than they ever spent building capacity right here in our own province, and that's shameful. Now, I understand that the member is now standing up to ask a question to continue to share misinformation like her colleague has been doing for weeks, but on this side of the House, we're going to stand in truth, work with experts, work with the front lines, continue to build more capacity, not less, here in our province.
The Honourable Member for Roblin on a supplementary question.
Hip and knee wait times have skyrocketed under the NDP government. The median wait time for hip replacement has climbed to 48 weeks, the highest it's been in at least 5 years, including during the pandemic. Knee replacement is up to 40 weeks and has climbed steadily since the NDP took office. I'll table all of that data for the House. These wait times are only current to June. It's now October, and we have no updated data. This marks the 4th time I've had to stand publicly and prod the NDP to do their job and update the data that's posted online. Will the Minister of Health commit to updating the wait time data today?
The Honourable Minister of Health, Seniors and Long-Term Care.
Honourable Speaker, on this side of the House, we believe that Manitobans should be able to access health care here in their own province. The previous government didn't believe in that, so they sent hundreds of folks outside of the province, millions upon millions of dollars, paying people who don't pay taxes in the province, in California, everywhere else but in Manitoba. And what they also did, which is particularly shameful, they ignored people who had been waiting for surgeries for years. They basically created an invisible wait list. Manitobans who never had the opportunity to even get close to getting a surgery in our province. Our government is making sure that those Manitobans who were ignored by the PCs are finally getting care here in Manitoba. Those wait times reflect that finally Manitobans are getting care here in Manitoba.
The Honourable Member for Roblin on a final supplementary question.
Honourable Speaker, MRI wait times are as high as 46 weeks in Winnipeg. Cataract waits are climbing, as recently reported by media, another report that I'll table. Cataract waits average 11 months. Ultrasound wait times are increasing, CT scan wait times are increasing, the list goes on. And these numbers don't even account for the wait time people face waiting to see a specialist. Despite promising an updated wait time tracker earlier this year, we're still waiting for one to materialize. Why do surgical and diagnostic wait times continue to increase under the NDP government?
The Honourable Minister of Health, Seniors and Long-Term Care.
Honourable Speaker, here in Manitoba, we are delivering more surgeries and more diagnostics than we ever have in the history of our province. Right here in our own province. Over 11,500 surgeries. That's far more than previously done, Honourable Speaker. We're delivering more diagnostics than we ever have in the history of this province. We have stood up historic spine surgery programs. We are working with our partners to stand up historic investments that are changing the trajectory of healthcare for the better. Now, I know it's taking us longer than Manitobans would like because we are dealing with cuts that were done over 7.5 years. Historic damage to our healthcare system due to a failed approach. It's going to take us years to fix the damage done by the PCs, but we're committed to doing that work every day.
The Honourable Member for Spruce Woods.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. In 2021, Progressive Conservatives were very pleased to sign on to the National Child Care Strategy, committing $1.2 billion over 5 years to build 23,000 new child care spaces in Manitoba. We got over 12,000 completed before the October 3rd, 2023 general election. In the 1 year that this government has been in office, can the minister update the House on how many new daycare spaces and centres have been announced under their tenure?
The Honourable Minister for Environment and Climate Change.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker, and I thank the member opposite for this important question. I know that childcare is top of mind for many Manitobans. As a parent of young children, I too have experienced the challenges in finding accessible, affordable childcare in this province after years of a failed PC government strategy. I am very proud to update the House that we have already built more than 6,900 spaces, and we are committed to many, many more. There is a lot of work to do. We are committed to doing that work. Manitobans can count on us.
The Honourable Member for Spruce Woods on a supplementary question.
Well, thank you, Honourable Speaker, and I hate to correct the minister, but the RTM spaces that we built and she just got to cut the ribbon for don't count. So the question is, how many new spaces has this government announced in their first year in office? And the question is answered, because the only space they've announced is a new daycare in Fort Rouge constituency. So why is the Premier's constituency getting new childcare spaces while the rest of Manitobans are stuck waiting in line?
The Honourable Minister for Environment and Climate Change.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. And again, I'm pleased to update the House that over 120 projects have been approved and will be out throughout every region of Manitoba. Over a quarter of those have opened already. But again, on this side of the House, we know that spaces aren't the only thing that's important. There's also the issue of early childhood educator wages, which were stagnant under the previous government. We also know that operational funding to daycare facilities in this province was frozen for 7 years under the previous government. The damage is great. There is much work to do. And like I said, Manitobans can count on the folks on this side of the House to get the work actually done.
The Honourable Member for Spruce Woods on a final supplementary question.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. The minister just committed that she has approved, or her government has approved, 120 childcare projects in the province. Will she table that list of 120 projects for this House and for all Manitobans to see where they are?
The Honourable Minister for Environment and Climate Change.
Honourable Speaker, again, thank you for the question from the member opposite. This is a very important issue. Manitobans have been suffering for 7.5 years under the failed leadership of the previous government. On this side of the House, you are going to get responsible, transparent planning. We all know that it would have taken 30, 40, 50 years under the PC's imaginary childcare plan that they had. On this side of the House, we have real plans. We work as a team. We are here for Manitobans' families and children.
The Honourable Member for Selkirk.
Honourable Speaker, the University of Manitoba expects to lose up to $8 million this year. Enrollments have declined 30% and more students are not returning to continue their studies. Students are asking if they will be paying more to make up the difference in upcoming tuition. The Minister of Advanced Education has assured this House that she will keep Manitoba universities and colleges whole. Will she confirm that contingency funds are being allocated from this year's budget to keep the U of M whole? And 2, that funding is being put in place in Budget 2025 to avoid tuition hike next school year.
The Honourable Minister for Advanced Education and Training.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. It is a pleasure to stand up in this House to finally get a question about one of the most important institutions in the province. Post-secondary education is so critically important to our economy, to the future of our province, and to the success of all of us as Manitobans. I appreciate the question from the member, which highlighted the fact that earlier this year, the federal government unilaterally cut allocations for international students. That was something that was really unfortunate. We've fought very hard to get our fair share of students into universities.
The honourable member for Selkirk on a supplementary question.
Honourable Speaker, this minister is responsible for keeping those institutions whole. Students are looking to her for answers and asking me to hold her accountable. The University of Winnipeg looks to lose up to $4 million in revenue this year. Wow. Can she tell the House today that contingency funds are being allocated in this year's budget to keep the U of W whole, and that funding is in place for budget 2025 to do the same?
Good question.
The Honourable Minister for Advanced Education and Training.
Honourable Speaker, I find it really rich that the members opposite are asking questions about sustainable funding for post-secondary institutions after they cut and froze funding for 7.5 years. 7.5 years of institutions not having enough money to cover basic operating costs. Order. Of students coming forward to saying they didn't have the classes they needed. Of students coming forward to say they didn't have the supports they needed. So while I appreciate the question, best to sit down.
The honourable member for Selkirk on a final supplementary question.
Well, this minister is definitely stuck in the past. Students are looking forward to their future. Colleges and universities are down hundreds of students and millions of dollars. I'm here to advocate on behalf of them and hold this minister accountable. Brandon University is down 20%, and the international students are further down. Many smaller independent schools are facing significant declines. Can the minister please confirm contingency funds are being allocated for our schools?
The honourable member for Advanced Education and Training.
Honourable Speaker, I thank the member for the question, but I have to question where he was advocating during those 7.5 years, where students were out front of this building hollering, where institutions were on strike, where the University of Manitoba Faculty Association took that government to court for the fact that they interfered in bargaining. Where was that member then? On this side of the House, we value our relationships with our institutions, with our professors, with our unions, and with our students. And we're doing all that we can to ensure that institutions do not bear the brunt of a terrible policy by the federal government.
Great job.
The honourable member for Dawson Trail.
I've received numerous concerns from parents regarding the cancellation of the Kids at Play program, and as a direct result, the increased risks associated with children walking along Highway 207, where traffic speeds can reach 70 kilometers an hour. Due to the NDP negligence and cuts, after-school programs and additional daycare spaces are off the table in Dawson Trail. Will the minister commit today to put more daycare spaces and after-school programs in, yes or no?
The honourable minister for Advanced Education and Training. The honourable minister for Environment and Climate Change.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker, and I thank the member opposite for that important question. I would welcome the member to reach out to our office, and I'd be glad to have a discussion with him. I'd be glad to meet with people in the community to hear about what the needs are in that community and what we can do to better support the concern. I will repeat myself that after 7.5 years of inaction by the previous government, Manitobans have finally elected a listening government, a government that's ready to meet folks where they're at and do the work that's necessary.
The honourable member for Dawson Trail on a supplementary question.
The NDP cuts to 9 schools is dramatically impacting the community of St. Anne. The new vocational high school planned and budgeted by our PC government hit the NDP chopping block, despite clear identified need in the community. This new school included over 100 new, desperately needed daycare spaces. Can the Minister of Education please explain why the funding for this school was cut and do the right thing today and commit to the residents of St. Anne that their new high school will be built?
The Honourable Minister for Environment and Climate Change.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. And again, we know that for 7.5 years, Manitoba students and families suffered under the previous government. Honourable Speaker, on the way out their door, On the way out the door in the last election, in the Department of Education, just like departments across government, they made a bunch of fake and phony promises to Manitobans to try to earn themselves re-election. It failed. Manitobans see through the PC's failed strategies, and they've elected a government that's going to do real work.
The honourable member for Dawson Trail on a final supplementary
The Legacy
question.
Children's Centre and Landmark, which opened in 2021 with provincial support from our BC government, is now struggling to stay afloat due to severe staffing shortages. Despite having the physical capacity to serve more children, the centre is being forced to limit its operations because it simply does not have the support it needs to attract and retain early childhood educators. Will the NDP stop cutting and immediately step up for daycares like the Legacy Child Care Centre?
The Honourable Minister for Environment and Climate Change.
Honourable Speaker, thank you. It is disappointing that members opposite, like the member for Dawson Trail, pretend now as if they care about education and as they care about childcare. On this side of the House, we recognize the challenges that families and caregivers face in meeting their childcare needs. That's why Manitobans elected an NDP government. We are a government that believes in supporting children and their families. It is the most important investment that we can make in society, Honourable Speaker. Parents know that the previous government's plan failed them, and we look forward to working with Manitobans to make sure that we can meet their educational and childcare needs.
The honourable member for Tyndall Park.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Back in July of 2023, the Auditor General's report investigating the Protection for Persons in Care Office reported a lengthy backlog of cases involving severe abuse of seniors and vulnerable Manitobans. I brought this issue forward almost a year ago on November 23rd, 2023, and asked this government to provide a timeline when these backlogged investigations will be completed. We never received a timeline. Nearly a year has gone by. Will the government confirm for the House if these backlogged investigations have been completed?
The Honourable Minister for Health, Seniors and Long-Term Care.
I thank the member for that really important question, and I do recall that she raised it previously, and I appreciate that she did. You know, under the previous PC government, there were very serious concerns, allegations of investigations not being done as far back as 2019. The previous PC government not only ignored those concerns, they went even further to not invest any resources whatsoever, knowing the concerns existed, to address those waits. It's a really reprehensible approach. It's a failed approach. It's why they're sitting on that side of the House. Something that they should remember, something we should all remember, which is why our government has worked very, very hard to clear that backlog on behalf of Manitobans, seniors, and their families. And as I just stated, I'm happy to report that backlog has been cleared.
Here, here. Good word, Doc.
The honourable member for Tyndall Park on a supplementary question.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker, and I am very happy to hear that. The Auditor General's report provided recommendations for change at the policy and frontline level to prevent further abuse. I'm tabling a CBC article from April 29th, 2024, where the Health Minister said the NDP government is moving forward on certain recommendations. Can the Minister share with us how many of the 12 recommendations from the Auditor General report have been implemented by this government?
The Honourable Minister for Health, Seniors and Long-Term Care.
Again, I thank the member for that really important question. You know, as I stated, we were handed a healthcare system that was cut year over year by the previous government. Serious issues were ignored, neglected, or made worse by their terrible decision making. And I appreciate the member is asking really important questions about how we protect seniors as a government. We've taken very, very significant steps to move healthcare and the protection of seniors in the right direction, including ensuring that we're implementing all 12 recommendations brought forward by the Auditor General. There's a lot more we need to learn. We're going to continue to listen to seniors and their families and experts in the system to move healthcare in a healthier direction and to remember the mistakes of the PC government past and Heather Stephenson so we do not repeat them.
The honourable member for Tyndall Park on a final supplementary question.
Honourable Speaker, it is wrong for this government to have campaigned on protecting seniors when an entire year has passed and they still have not. They haven't addressed the abuse that occurred within our care homes or allowed for Manitobans to voice their opinion with respect to the independent office for the seniors advocate. Can this government tell us specifically what their plan is for seniors in Manitoba?
The Honourable Minister for Health, Seniors and Long-Term Care.
I want to be really clear. The investigations are up to date. We did clear the backlog. It was an extensive backlog left to us by the previous PC government, who again spent years cutting healthcare services and failing to protect seniors, which is a shameful record. Our government made sure that we had the tools in place to equip the PPCO with not only clearing that backlog, but establishing policies that will further protect seniors. It is doubly shameful that the PCs opposite to us not only made those mistakes in the past, but they actually blocked the introduction of the Independent Seniors Advocate Office from being introduced in this House while seniors were in the gallery for it that day. But our government is moving forward. We're making sure that we are establishing an Independent Seniors Advocate Office. I look forward to working with that member to make sure it meets the needs of seniors across this province.
The Honourable Member for McPhillips.
Honourable Speaker, our government has been hard at work addressing the ER wait times that grew exponentially under the PC government. Cleaning up their emergency department disaster has been a top priority, and we've made progress. One significant step our government took this summer was a much-needed addition of transitional care unit beds to the system. These beds are key to improving care times and reducing wait times. Can the minister please tell us more about how these beds will help our healthcare system and what they will do for our communities in Manitoba?
The Honourable Minister of Health, Seniors and Long-Term Care.
I thank my colleague from McPhillips for that really great question. We have 68 new transitional care beds that are already making an impact on patient flow, wait times, and overcrowding. We've added 15 beds in Selkirk, 8 beds at Misericordia, 25 beds to Holy Family Personal Care Home, 20 beds to the Safe Space program in St. Boniface, and there's more on the way. All of this is going to help seniors who are waiting for placements at long-term care facilities. It's going to help patients who are ready to be discharged but have barriers to being discharged into community, and it's going to support those who need additional care. Honourable Speaker, our government is committed to fixing the emergency room wait times that were caused by the previous government's cuts, and this is a great step in the right direction.
The Honourable Member for Turtle Mountain.
Honourable Speaker, I'm hearing from constituents across Turtle Mountain and from Manitoba across our province that under this minister, it used to be the rite of passage is now like winning a lottery. The current options are woefully inefficient. Enrolling into driver's ed should not require a combination of luck and patience. Why is this minister failing to schedule sufficient classes, especially in our rural communities, Honourable Speaker?
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Well, it feels like there's a bit of a theme going on here today, Honourable Speaker, because it's all about cleaning up the mess created by the previous government. Of course, not only in this case was the minister a member of the government, the member of the previous government, he was the minister responsible, and he, of course, allowed the training and the situation with driver's ed in rural Manitoba to deteriorate. We're working with our partners in rural Manitoba. We're ensuring that there is continuity and that there's enhanced services. Really, it's about cleaning up the mess. We're getting to work. Where this minister failed, we're going to get it right.
The Honourable Member for Turtle Mountain on a supplementary question.
Honourable Speaker, I used the Course Finder feature on MPI's website, and I am not sure if the minister understands Manitoba geography, Honourable Speaker. The student from Cartwright, who was told the only option that he had was to either go 1 hour to Morton, Manitoba, or to Brandon, Manitoba, spending more time on the road than he did in the classroom. Except it isn't the option because there are no seats despite registrations are just opening for that class. Why is this minister not making additional classes available in rural Manitoba?
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Well, again, Honorable Speaker, it's a big mess and there's a lot to clean up, but we're working hard to make it happen. We're working with MPI to increase recruitment and retention of driver examiners, particularly in rural areas. We've got a new full-time driver examiner position, which we filled this month in Brandon to help better serve the needs of the growing community there. Of course, the improved program reach, update to the instructor contracts, increased pay for driver's ed instruction, adding fleet vehicles to attract new instructors. The list goes on and on, Honorable Speaker. There's a lot to clean up, but the member opposite needs to be accountable for the steps that he didn't take when he was minister responsible.
The honourable member for Turtle Mountain on a final supplementary question.
Honourable Speaker, looking at courses in this minister's constituency, you have 25 different courses offered. Except these students suffer the same problem as rural students, Honourable Speaker. Even with the wealth of choices, seats are snapped up as soon as they become available. This minister is depriving youth throughout Manitoba for a vital driver's safety education and the opportunity of getting supervised practice on the road. Will this minister make it a priority for his office?
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Well, again, Honourable Speaker, the member's taking all this time to detail in specific examples all the failures that he created. We understand the issue. We understand the problem. The one thing he's not mentioning, of course, is the strike that the members opposite created at MPI and tried to politicize rather than getting to work at the business of improving MPI. That's the work that our government is doing. We're working with partners, not just with MPI, but of course with ACC and others who are providing some of this training. We're willing to work with all as one Manitoba to solve the problems created by the members opposite.
The honourable member for Spruce Woods.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Last week, in response to a question, the acting Minister of Education committed to building 5 new schools in this year under her new administration in that department. Can she outline for us where those 5 new schools are being constructed?
The Honourable Minister for Environment and Climate Change.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker, and I thank the member opposite for the question. I'd be happy to detail the 5 new schools. So the one that's already opened is called Discovery Trails in Morden. We've also got 1 school in Seven Oaks. We've got 2 schools in the great neighborhood of Sage Creek, a DCFM school and also an LRSD school. And then we've also got the Park Hill School in Steinbach that's slated to open in the fall. We are very excited of our capital school plan. I can't wait to share more with the House and with Manitobans.
The honourable member for Spruce Woods.
So just so everyone's clear, 3 out of those 5 schools are already built, and we know that this government didn't build them in 12 months. So those are PC schools. You're welcome for building them in your constituencies. And when are you going to start building schools for the rest of Manitobans?
The Honourable Minister for Environment and Climate Change.
Honourable Speaker, I apologize to Manitobans for the anger and the divisiveness coming from the opposite side of the House, and for their inaccurate statements about the state of public education in Manitoba. Let's talk a little bit about their record, Honourable Speaker. They cut education for 7.5 years, and only in the election year pretended to have an increase. They tried to get rid of all school boards with their failed Bill 64. They couldn't even pass with their own majority government, Honourable Speaker. They misled Manitobans by claiming they were building 9 new schools when in reality they didn't even budget for them. They froze operating grants for child care centres for 7 years. They gutted the Bureau of Education Française and cut the Assistant Deputy Minister position. I could go on and on and on and on, Honourable Speaker.
The time for question period has also expired. Petitions. There are no petitions. Grievances. No grievances. Orders of the day, government business. The Honourable Government House Leader.
Honourable Speaker, can you please call to resume Committee of Supply?
The House will now dissolve into Committee of Supply. Resolve.
Will the Committee of Supply please come to order? This section of the Committee of Supply will now resume consideration of the estimates of Executive Council. At this time, we invite ministerial and opposition staff to enter the chamber, and we ask the members to please introduce their staff in attendance. Honorable First Minister.
I present to you Sarah Thiele, the Clerk of the Executive Council, Mark Rosner, the Tories' worst nightmare.
And the Honorable Leader of the Official Opposition.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. Introducing Mr. Braden Jones, Chief of Staff.
As previously stated, in accordance with Sub-Rule 78(16), during the consideration of departmental estimates, questioning for each department shall proceed in a global manner. The floor is now open for questions. The Honorable Leader of the Official Opposition.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. Just taking a quick scan back, and I'm sure hopefully the Premier took some time to take a look over Hansard from the spring to refresh his memory, considering it took us a long time to get back into estimates. It's unfortunate that, again, the Premier and the government seem to be dodging some of these questions. So I guess I'll carry on with a question that I asked earlier today during question period, just to see, we talk about expenses. And so it was reported earlier on in the Winnipeg Free Press that the Premier enjoys a $17 or $16 salad each and every day. I'd like to ask, how does the Premier pay for that salad?
The Honorable First Minister.
On questions of salad, typically I use TAP. Sometimes I use the scene card first. That's if I'm at Safeway. If I'm at Black Market Provisions, which is a great LGBTQ owned business in my constituency, they don't take scene cards there. So in that case, I just use the TAP. And sometimes them being the great small business owners that they are, they might even deliver. And then I'll just settle up with them via credit card over the phone. So there's a whole range of payment scenarios and options I could walk the Leader of the Official Opposition through, if he likes. Again, healthcare is the #1 priority of the people of Manitoba. Affordability and the economic impacts of inflation is right up there as another big priority. Member opposite wants to talk salad. He wants to take some shots about the last time we were in estimates, and it took us a while to get back here, I think was the words that he used, but I'm honestly surprised to even see him again. Last time we had an estimates hearing, he left. He was still talking on the way out the door. He couldn't get his whole question out, and he left. He ran away. That, of course, is not a reflection on his presence or absence in the chamber, but rather is a reflection on the trailed off manner in which he delivers the queries here. And I think we all remember why he was leaving, his thoughts unfinished, as it were. It's because that day the PC caucus split on the question of whether or not to support the rights of trans people in our society. And so the member opposite yielded his time And we've noticed since that he cannot sustain an entire question period, even though he's paid to do so. And I wonder whether he'll be able to sustain an afternoon today or a question period tomorrow. Again, I'm proud of what our team has done 1 year into office. And, you know, the members opposite, I gotta say, today was a lot of nerves, a lot of butterflies, that PC leadership deadline coming up at 12 p.m. Was anyone gonna run at all? Most people were running away from the PC leadership. And apparently they were able to wrangle some folks into putting their name on a ballot there. But yeah, you know, of course we welcome vigorous contested leadership. Hopefully there will be an ability for an opposition to serve the important accountability function that they have in this democratic institution here. But again, an opposition leader who yields his time, returns with the butter would not melt in my mouth type attitude of condescension, and then proceeds to lead off with questions about salad. I mean, I guess, yes, that is an opposition, nominally, but perhaps we will see a reinvigorated PC opposition at some point in the future. But again, as somebody who led a party through a process of renewal, I can tell you it doesn't happen overnight. It takes a lot of hard work. And I know that our team certainly put in the work. We developed a comprehensive plan to repair healthcare after the damaging cuts, closures of emergency rooms and other healthcare facilities in Manitoba, and a plan to repair the education system as well, after teachers were given an air of disillusion when they regarded the prospects under a successive third PC administration. Many young teachers wondered whether there would be a future for them in their chosen profession. I'm happy to report that today they tell us, yes, there is a future in the education system. And that's thanks to the good work of our team and the education department. So when we look at affordability, healthcare, education, the environment, social services, things are looking better in Manitoba today. And so I guess if, you know, the member opposite wants to clarify what scene points can be redeemed for what this week, we can delve into all of that and I can explain.
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson, and once again, Manitobans are seeing the Premier sit in his spot, and the level of arrogance once again is shining through. Maybe not quite fully bullying from his spot as he did in the spring, but that being said, continues to put misinformation, if not disinformation, on the record to you Manitobans. So the question was, how does the Premier pay for his salad? I guess I should have been a little more clear, thinking that the Premier might understand what the question was, but obviously not so much. So the Premier, until I believe just a few days ago, finally decided to table some of his expenses or put online some of his expenses over the last year after being pressured to do so. And the Premier sits in his spot today, Honourable Chairperson, and doesn't deny the fact that he's eating on an everyday basis a $16 or $17 salad. Matter of fact, he brags the fact that he's using Scene Card and he's tapping his card, and then he puts on the record some more disingenuous information when it comes time for actually talking about what had happened in the spring estimates time. You see, Honourable Chairperson, I know that the Premier and his level of arrogance and self-serving manner doesn't quite understand
the word team or allowing other members of this chamber who have been elected to be here time to actually have time during Executive Council estimates to be able to ask the Premier some questions. In the springtime, actually, I didn't run out of questions at all. I actually gave the amount of time to the leader of the Liberal Party some time to ask the Premier some questions. It's unfortunate that once again, Honourable Speaker, and I've said this multiple times, it's unfortunate that the media refuses or doesn't want to be in here during this time, because it's the little things that the Premier ends up doing. The level of arrogance, his level of toxicity that is burning inside of him, he can't hold it in, Honourable Chairperson. And I think the worst part is that he hides. When the cameras are off and the microphones are off, that's when he does these little bullying tactics. And I'll remind the member, the Premier, the MLA for Fort Rouge, that have worked with students in the past with emotional and behavior disorders. And I think the Premier maybe checks off a few of those boxes. And so he sits here and tries to belittle not only myself, but other members in the chamber. And I'll just let him know that there will be opportunities for independent members to bring forward questions to the Premier, as well as there may be an opportunity for some of my colleagues to bring some questions to the Premier. So I guess, back to the salad thing. So the costs of refreshments, tea, coffee, snacks, meals for the Premier's office, costs of refreshments, tea, coffee, snacks, meals for Executive Council, costs of refreshments, tea, coffee, snacks, meals for ministers' offices, out-of-province travel expenses for the Premier, including Executive Council staff, intergovernmental staff, overtime for Executive Council staff, cost of all newly purchased electronic devices, etc., and the list goes on. The Premier, I don't believe he's been very accountable or transparent up till today, October 15th. I believe that there's incomplete expenses that are not being shown to Manitoba taxpayers, and I'd like him to start answering some questions and stop this immature game and answer some questions on behalf of myself and Manitobans.
The Honourable First Minister.
All right, second set of questions on salads. Pay for them myself out of my own pocket. Today's salad was $10 or $11. Can't remember exactly, but it was an off-the-shelf Safeway salad. Again, this is at a time when healthcare is the #1 priority for the people of Manitoba. Affordability is the top priority for the people of Manitoba. So, one of the interesting things that we discovered in office, in addition to the fact that the PCs didn't cost any of the election year commitments that they tried to run on, was that there was no system for regularly disclosing ministerial expenses in their government. And that's why they didn't disclose any ministerial expenses in the election year or in the lead up to it. Much as we are fixing up their mess in healthcare, much as we are fixing the mess in education, much as we are fixing the mess that they left in the delivery of public services in Manitoba, we are fixing up their mess in this regard as well. You'll note that it was our team that posted the PC government's final ministerial expenses, not themselves on the way out the door. And of course, we are updating our website and internal processes to ensure that this will be done automatically and on a systematic basis going forward. did not occur to the member opposite, nor was this a burning public policy question for anyone in his administration for a number of years. But folks have asked these questions, and I'm very happy to respond. And so we are fixing the PC mess when it comes to disclosures as well too. We have quite a few disclosures that we can share regarding the former PC government, of course. The member opposite, we know he traveled abroad, as well as many other former cabinet ministers, many of whom were defeated in the last government. Such was the overall shoddiness of their aptitude when it came to public administration, but also the generally toxic campaign that they ran last year. Member opposite, of course, is engaging in a bit of revisionist history. I think we all remember that last afternoon in estimates. It happened in the wake of his caucus fracturing over a vote on whether or not to acknowledge the visibility of trans people in Manitoba. And I haven't been here the longest of everyone, but I've been here for a few terms now, and for the first time ever, I saw a caucus splinter when it came to a vote. And it was with LGBT recognition, not even necessarily taking a huge service delivery change or new direction in terms of the Human Rights Code, but just to acknowledge that we see and recognize trans folks in the community. And that was too much for the PCs to be able to support or even to abstain. 4 members had to come and vote against the prospect of seeing, you know, perhaps literally, but maybe more so in the symbolic sense, trans people in our communities. And of course, I guess if the member opposite would have it, coincidentally that day, the member opposite yielded his questions because he didn't want to entertain being pointed out to him that that is inappropriate. And there is, of course, an important context in which that vote happened, which is that in his first opportunity to do national media, the leader of the official opposition sought to revive the question of parental rights. And he sought to wade into a failed PC campaign tactic, which was very divisive and very toxic to not just trans people, but people in Manitoba generally who are concerned with equity and equality. And so, given the chance to share his vision for a renewed PC party, he chose to revive the failed 2023 campaign talking points from his former colleague Heather Stephenson. Then when his members split about whether or not they should support a continuance of that direction, the member opposite yielded his time. That's what happened.
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson. And the nice thing is there's this thing called Hansard, which the Premier fails to tell Manitobans, of course, as he sits there. And he likes to think that that Manitobans won't read some of it and won't fact check some of the information that he continues to put on the record. In regards to being in the same chamber as the Premier, I've told him multiple times, I'm not afraid of you. I think, you know, there's a lot of potential from the Premier to actually answer some questions. And Honourable Chairperson, I say to you that I'm not scared of the Premier. And I know the Premier doesn't like to be challenged because he brought up the fact of toxic and dysfunctional. I'm going to add abusive behavior. And that's just talking about the Premier. I think I think he is going to have to answer. And I know that he is now, again, if the media were up in the gallery, they'd be able to report on some of this, but he's worried and he's trying to use his influence over the chair of the committee. Again, it's a different chair. than who was in the chair during the springtime, they're not worried about you either. Or maybe they are. Maybe that's why some of these things are not coming through.
The leader of, First Minister on a point of order.
I just want to remind everyone in the committee that questions are supposed to be referred through the chair, which would mean phrasing a question directed at me in the third person rather than in the second person, as the minister, or former minister rather, current leader of the opposition, has done 3 times in the preamble, for which presumably will eventually result in a question regarding a public policy matter.
So there was a point of order, and that question should be referred to through the chair, and we should refrain from using the word "you," because it should be coming through the chair. The leader of the official opposition.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson, and I appreciate the fact of your clarity. The nice thing is that the Premier finally put it on the record of how he was going to educate you on the functionality of this chamber and how questions are worded and all that. And partially because, Honorable Chairperson, is that he is getting a little uncomfortable, especially when we start talking about toxic and dysfunctional workplaces. And he's the one who brought it up. So I'm glad he brought it up, and we will get to that. I've said multiple times on within different media as well that the Premier's unfit for office, unbecoming of a Premier, many of his behaviors. And we will get more into, the serious allegations of assault and abuse within his own caucus and party. But so, Honorable Chairperson, Manitobans expect their Premier to lead with dignity and professionalism. But we're faced with today is deceit and dysfunction, and we see it on display today already during estimates. We've seen this shown by this Premier time and time again, that he's unfit for the office that he holds. We aren't just talking about his many, many early policy failures or even broken promises. For the record, the Premier presently stands accused of bullying, screaming, demeaning, lunging, grabbing, and assaulting people within his own party. This is consistent with a past he claims to have left behind, in which he has also had a problem with violence. The Premier's reaction to this leadership crisis of his own making has been denying it outright and attacking others. And he continues to try to do the bullying tendencies that we see on display today again. Manitobans are unfortunately dealing with some very serious, deeply troubling, and honestly disqualifying character flaws in their Premier that makes him, not you, wholly unsuitable to lead our province. And there were signs. Unfortunately, a lot of people pointed out red flags about the Premier for years. For those red flags were overlooked while he was unable to gain power. We know that the NDP, under the Selinger government, matter of fact, Greg Selinger himself put his arm around the Premier. That was a little bit before the knife came out and got the previous Premier Selinger a bit of a knife in the back. We know that the most recent allegations of aggression, bullying, and manipulation that has no place in public life. We know that the MLA for Fort Garry had put on the record that the Premier had lunged at him, grabbed him aggressively, and yanked his arm during a campaign event in 2019. This just isn't another heated political moment. And I've got other examples if the Premier wants to go there, or he can start maybe answering some questions. Again, this isn't leadership, it's bullying. It's aggression. And it's definitely not an isolated incident. Premier has consistently demonstrated time and time again when he's backed into a corner or even challenged, he ends up lashing out, whether it's physically, verbally, or through his manipulation of those around him. He makes others pay for his mistakes. There's a growing list of apologies the Premier has had to give over the years, a second longer list of apologies that he has yet to give but really should, and a third, even longer list of people who he hurt but who he will never, ever apologize to. Honorable Speaker, how many apologies need to occur for the Premier in each of those three categories before he gives his final apology as Premier? And will that occur during a resignation speech or a concession speech?
The Honourable First Minister.
The member opposite has a lot of free time on his hand to engage in various hypothetical scenarios, none of which are currently in front of me. And so I'll resist weighing in on his various thoughts about me and what may become in the future and all those things. I would point out, though, that he is paid to ask questions during question period and during estimates. And so if he wants to ensure that he and the PC caucus do their job and fill the estimates time and fill question period each day, he'd probably start doing some of the work of rebuilding the PC party's standing, I guess we could say, in the eyes of Manitobans. As an interim leader, though, his first thing is just to do no harm. And I wonder whether his time in office has done no harm, or if he's kept digging that hole for the PCs a little bit deeper. Inside their caucus room, I wonder how they view his opening comment today, that he's thinking there's going to be time for independent members and maybe, quote, end quote, time for his own caucus to ask questions. Not good for internal caucus dynamics, just like that vote earlier in the spring sitting. And certainly, when we're talking about the public-facing task of rebuilding the PC parties, not even electoral prospects, but just like ability not to be laughed out of a room in Manitoba, I'd say his foray into trying to earn national media by weighing in on the parental rights missteps of the 2023 PC campaign were ill-advised, to say the least. Anyway, such as it is, that is the state of the opposition, and we see on a daily basis in question period when they're scrambling to come up with question 10 on the fly, or looking at each other to see if they've got anything after the independent Liberal asks something, or in estimates when they yield their time and time again. It's supposed to be opposition time, but it's being charitable to say the opposition is doing their job these days when it comes to showing up for work and doing the basics. Our team did it year after year, even in the wake of 2016. The team that's in government today was here in the building, putting in the work, rebuilding the political project. And we're very humbled to receive a mandate from the people of Manitoba. So we could be doing, bilateral meetings with other levels of government. We could be doing economic development projects. We could be exercising oversight and strategic planning with the health service delivery organizations. There are any number of important business of government tasks we could be operating here, but the estimates and budgetary process are important too, so we are here in the chamber listening to the various musings and hypothetical scenarios being constructed by the member for Lac du Bonnet. So, why don't we talk about some substance? I mean, geez, there's a personal care home that's going to get built in Lac du Bonnet by our government. I was very proud to be there. The excitement in the room was tangible. I've never been to a government announcement where pom-poms were used by people in the crowd. And while you may think, hey, that would be nice if that happened someday, certainly you wouldn't think that that's going to happen in a blue PC riding, at least currently. But that's what happened earlier this year. And so I recognize that folks in the community are rightly very skeptical after having been strung along by the member opposite for many years. But we are moving ahead with building a personal care home. A lot of due diligence had to be put in place that was disregarded and not carried out by the previous PC administration, but I'm happy to report that we have conducted that due diligence, and we will have shovels in the ground this year. And construction, of course, will continue going into 2025, and then, yeah, we'll have a ribbon cutting ceremony there in Lac du Bonnet. And perhaps the member opposite, the member for Interlake Gimli, will show up at the announcement too, and that's great. The more the merrier when it comes to rolling out the good news agenda of our administration.
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson, and once again, Premier, with the level of that arrogance that he has not yet been able to shake, and the self-serving platitudes that he gives himself on a daily basis, I don't think is starting to echo across this great province of ours, Honourable Chairperson. So I'll give the Premier a little bit of a history lesson, and I'll take a couple quotes from him as well. So 2012, then Premier Greg Selinger, his mentor, had strolled out to the community of Lac du Bonnet, didn't bring the health minister, didn't bring anyone else besides some staff. Not sure if the Tories' worst nightmare was there or not. I don't actually remember. But looking for a reaction, didn't quite get a reaction. I'm not sure if Mr. Rossner was there or not. I can't say it. But then Premier Selinger had said that there's going to be a Lac du Bonnet personal care home built, 80 beds, and they were going to start construction in 2014. Nothing happened. The community put up a sign. The NDP government didn't even leave a weed whacker to trim the weeds around. Fast forward to the fall of 2023. Oh, by the way, and then of course when we get into government in 2016, we're looking and there was no money set aside. There wasn't even a shred of evidence that the committees back in the day in Lac du Bonnet received any confirmation from the Selinger government that they in fact were actually going to build a personal care home. So the committee, plus the town and the municipality, received a letter from us, the PC government, that it was okay to get going on a personal care home. And so they started, and they broke ground. And then the election happened, 2023, and to correct the record, the Premier pats himself on the back, but he knows himself that he didn't win the election. We lost it. He didn't win it. He likes to take some credit, but really the only credit he's got is for failing on so many promises that he made during the election and before the election. So then he, right after assumed office in October of 2023, what did he do? He cut the project. He cut the personal care home project. And then comes out for an announcement to the community of Lac du Bonnet as if he thought of this himself, and he says, for real this time. I was hoping that maybe the former Premier Selinger was maybe listening, because he just confirmed, the MLA for Fort Rouge confirmed that Greg Selinger had no intention of building a personal care home in Lac du Bonnet. He said it himself. Those are today's Premier's words. So then he comes out and he brings, a lot of his staff and a couple other ministers out to an announcement in Lac du Bonnet and announces a personal care home. But he says, trust me this time, he says, the Premier, the MLA for Fort Rouge, says, trust me, we're going to build it for real this time. Well, still no paper, still no evidence that the community has received. Matter of fact, there's a letter dated September 27th, 2024, from the municipality and the town of Lac du Bonnet, addressed to this Premier, asking, when is this happening? Why have we not heard anything? Asking for a response. I don't even think the Premier's office has responded. This is what happens under this leadership of the MLA for Fort Rouge. Lots of promises, no action, and I am encouraged, and hopefully that shovel will hit the ground before the end of the year, but I doubt it. Will it?
The Honourable First Minister.
I thought the ground was already broke. What is going on in the member's preamble? So they broke ground last year, and now he's optimistic that our government will break ground. So there you go. That's everything you need to know about the PC approach. He's now heckling across the aisle. And I'll, the member's time is up, and I'll remind everyone in the committee that heckling is against the rules. So I may do a point of order. We'll see how it goes. But at this point, I think I'm happy just to know that the member has taken the bait, and he's trying to do the grinning thing and talking while I'm talking. But the point is, the preamble is logically inconsistent with itself. The PC government had a long history of not doing the work necessary to back up announcements that they made in the lead up to the 2023 election. And the members' commitment to that message track is so deep that he didn't even recognize that he tried to repeat the idea that ground had been broke on this project before concluding with his rhetorical flourish that he's optimistic that our government will break ground on this project. So, I mean, you could look at all the different announcements that they rolled out, stuff that was in the 10-year capital plan that they tried to get some credit for, they tried to get some clout for in the lead up to the election. And again, no paper, no backup. People in Lac du Bonnet, of course, are skeptical, not because of any particular 2012 or 2013 or 2014, but for the entirety of it, including the fact that their MLA was in government for 2 terms and did not deliver this care home. Their MLA was sitting around the cabinet table. And only when his party was severely behind in the polls did this appear to all of a sudden become something that had a bit of urgency behind it. But again, no work was done, because at the time of the writing of the letter that the member reads from but does not table, or perhaps was just a reference to be charitable to him, we were doing due diligence, important work that had not been carried out by health service delivery organizations or the Department of Health under the former failed PC government of Heather Stephenson, of which this member was a part. We're asking important due diligence questions relating to financing, relating to governance, and it was clear that these questions had not been entertained by the previous government. So we are very happy to recommit and to reaffirm and to say that we are moving ahead, that questions that we had have all been answered, and that work that was carried out over the summer on the due diligence side proceeded in lockstep with some of the early prep work and feasibility and engineering and design steps that were required in order for us to put shovels in the ground this year, this calendar year, of course. So yeah, again, moving ahead. Good news. There's a government in Manitoba that's building personal care home beds again, where the PCs not only didn't build any, but we actually lost personal care homes. The story was exactly the same when it came to social housing in the province. Nothing built, and actually a net loss in the hundreds of beds when it came to personal care homes, and the hundreds of units when it came to social housing. So yeah, good news. Things are on the mend. There's, you know, a lot that the member opposite could be asking about, since I was able to put this Lac de Bonnie personal care home on the docket and ensure that we're covering at least some substantive ground before, you know, he gets to his extemporizing and meandering discourse. Perhaps we could talk about some other important issues. Maybe we could talk about Southwest Winnipeg Fire Hall, the Waverley Fire Hall. We could talk about that. That's a good one. We could talk about initiatives in northern Manitoba to bring healthcare into communities. That would be a good one. Anyway, there's lots of good things that we could talk about. And again, we'll put in the work, and then we'll do the press conference later, unlike the PC administration. Next time you see us at a podium for a Lac de Bonnie personal care home, there will be a building behind us, and the member is welcome to join.
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson, and thank you for the work that you're doing during these committees as well, Honourable Chairperson, because I know that it's probably not an easy task having to sit there with your boss educating you on every couple seconds, but I know that you have my faith that you're doing a good job. Talk about the Premier talks about due diligence. Well, due diligence, yet the same result that the personal care home needed to be built, and the only ground that he's covering is the ground that we actually had broke the ground, and then he came and decided to cover it back up so that he could do a little bit of an announcement there in February and March. And the letter, or what I was reading off of, is actually in his inbox, and it's really not from that long ago. It's from the, no, he might even have that coming in as we speak, but maybe he should respond to the community that are asking him these questions. He continues to put that misinformation on the record. We backed up the personal care home with a letter. He came with the pomp and circumstance, just like Greg Selinger did, his mentor. Left the community, again, with some hope, because he said that really this time, basically he was confirming the fact that Greg Selinger never had any intention on bringing the Lac de Bonnie personal care home to fruition. So he rolled in, and again, I'm hoping that what the Premier is saying is true, that there will be shovels in the ground again, but by the NDP for the Lac de Bonnie personal care home this calendar year, which I'll remind the Premier is prior to December 31st. Here's part of the problem that the Premier doesn't understand, and here's economics 101, is the fact that any day, any week, any month that this continues to be delayed, costs go up. I know he really doesn't care, because at the end of the day, it's taxpayer dollars. And so the original costing of the Lac Du Bonnet Personal Care Home was going to be around $75–80 million. The Premier says he's done his due diligence and he's taken the summer, even though technically they did the announcement last February or March, so I don't know what he's talking about. Again, talking out of both sides of his mouth and trying to pat himself on the back. So if he's done his due diligence, what's the new estimated cost on the Lac Du Bonnet Personal Care Home?
The Honorable First Minister.
Happy to engage in some questions of substance with the member opposite, but just want to point out the stark difference between what he says to the media and how he behaves here in the chamber of the legislature. Here, you know, he's about to, you know, take the covers off a vast conspiracy of how ground was broken and then dirt was covered up onto the broken ground to make way for this announcement earlier in the year, or whatever chemtrail type theory he's working on these days. That's what he says here in the chamber, but what does he say to the public and what does he say to the media? Well, I'll read you a quote from the Clipper newspaper in his constituency. Quote, "I'm happy this personal care home is going ahead. This is great news," end quote. That was April 4, 2024. So there you go. Very interesting juxtaposition from the member opposite. Also, when we're reviewing the media, this is funny because I can actually see the paywall, so you know it's actually the Winnipeg Free Press's real site that I'm reading off of here. Going back to 2017, so you know who was in power at that time in 2017. Headline of the article is "Province Pennywise, Pound Foolish on Healthcare." And it begins, "Lauren Schinkel would find out in a most impersonal way. It was the early evening of February 8th, and the reeve of the rural municipality of Lac Du Bonnet had just arrived home. He turned on the television to watch the news, only to find out that the province had canceled plans to build the Lac Du Bonnet Personal Care Home." So that was Brian Pallister. That was the member opposite when they had their chance to be able to get this thing built. The member opposite was around the government table for 2 terms. And it's interesting, I never heard any friendly questions about the Lac Du Bonnet Personal Care Home when the PCs are in power. You know, there could have been some activist work, there could have been some advocacy work done by the member opposite. He was also elevated to cabinet around the rally the troops stage of Brian Pallister's time in office. And so again, he had a number of years to get this thing built. I don't recall exactly how long he was in cabinet, but I suspect that he was in cabinet long enough that if they would have started when he went in, there would be a personal care home standing in Lac Du Bonnet by the time he left office as a minister of the Crown. Perhaps not, but I think that timeline roughly works out. And of course, since I like to take the bait, the member opposite says Economics 101. Well, you know, Economics 101 from the member opposite is one thing, but he certainly pales in comparison to the great Costas Nicolo, who was my undergrad economics prof for first year economics. God bless his soul. He's no longer with us. But he was great. He helped to inspire a love of what is sometimes called the dismal science, but is certainly very, very important to me and to many and many others in Manitoba, including folks who take a keen interest in public policy and fiscal matters, which would preclude basically the entirety of Heather Stephenson's cabinet, but does include a lot of other people in Manitoba. So, PCH cost is actually less than what the member opposite put on the record earlier. So I don't know if we're going to keep going back on salads and you know, long preambles, but if we are, we can maybe draw this out for a few more answers. I can maybe tell the member opposite if he's getting hotter or colder when it comes to the numbers, inaccurate as they are, about what this building costs. But in the interest of transparency and for the good people of Lac-du-Bonnet, I'll go ahead and say it's $66.4 million.
Before I recognize the Leader of the Official Opposition, I'll just caution the use of the term speaking out of both sides of your mouth. It has been cautioned in the past that implies someone is lying, so it'd be best if we steer clear of that term. The Leader of the Official Opposition.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson, for that advice. I will, when referencing the Premier, I'll be careful saying the term speaking out of both sides of his mouth. So thanks for that guidance. And I actually didn't realize that the term speaking out of both sides of your mouth was a reference to inferring that the member for Fort Rouge is lying. But
First
thank
Minister
you.
on a point of order.
So just want you to also be able to refer to what was just said there as you were in the process of interjecting. But I just wanted to say that clearly you had just provided direction that a certain term is unparliamentary, and I think we're all able to discern that the member opposite was trying to repeat said unparliamentary phrase multiple times for some sort of, I guess he would believe, rhetorical effect. My concern as a serious parliamentarian being, though, that it showed a disrespect for the chair in the process, and went on to use another bit of unparliamentary language, which I won't repeat, but begins with the letter L, and is probably the most commonly referred to term when we're talking about unparliamentary language. So again, I think it's important that everybody here show respect for the chair. I think the rules of the chamber show that this is well established. And in the immediate wake of you correcting any one of us, I would submit that there should not be repeated reference of the same unparliamentary language.
So there was a point of order with that in the reflection on the decision of the chair, and I would encourage all members, once being cautioned not to use unparliamentary language, to refrain from continuing to use it in your transition to parliamentary language. So with that, I will recognize the Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
Thank you, Honorable Chair, and once again, I'll take your guidance and I guess, you know, repeating your message to me, you know, I take that as advice as well from you to not repeat that on the record again. So thanks for your advice. Again, pointing out that that the Premier is taking up time from estimates to take the time to educate the chair of the committee, but that's what the Premier does. He little subtle bullying tactics, and as Manitobans see, we do have a new chair in the chair position this time around, but I'm sure hopefully the chair will listen to what the Premier's saying so that he's not replaced in the next set of estimates. So last spring, I opened by saying that it's an honor to be here in this chamber in his role, representing His Majesty's official opposition.
The Honourable First Minister on a point of order.
The member was literally reflecting on the chair. So again, I'll leave it to your judgment as to whether this fits the bill procedurally speaking, about what is meant in the parliamentary tradition, about it being inappropriate for a member who is recognized as having the floor in the chamber to reflect, and I'm using quotes here to make clear that I'm talking about the literal procedural definition of reflecting on the chair. I'll leave that to your judgment as to whether this fits the bill of that. But I do want to point out that the member opposite literally did just reflect on the chair. And what he laid out is that in some way your role, serving as the chair of this committee, being as we are in the committee of supply, is in some way up for debate or may not be assured, or that you may not be the chair going forward into the future. Certainly, just on, I guess, like a substantive measure, there is nothing to that. You are the deputy speaker. You will be chairing many, many committees, this one and many others going forward into the future. But I do think, at the very least, it's inappropriate for the member opposite to draw you, the chair, who has an impartial role to play here in adjudicating disagreements or debate or back and forth between myself and whoever is asking questions in the committee of supply. And so, yeah, drawing you into that is inappropriate. And on the record, reflections about your role as the chair strikes me as inappropriate as well. And so again, I would like to discuss substantive public policy questions like healthcare and education and the economy, but I do think it is necessary for us to conduct ourselves in a parliamentary fashion. It's not as though like points of order are to be won or lost, but if we were keeping track, the member opposite has lost 2 points of order already, and this one, at least from a lay perspective, comes perilously close to being that third strike. So I did just want to flag for you that I find that reflecting on your role of the chair is inappropriate, and I submit it to you as potentially being another breach of the rules insofar as we were not supposed to reflect on the guidance that you provide, the sanctity of your role, or your ability to carry out your impartial function here in the committee. And I believe he was reflecting on your ability to carry out those functions above the fray, so to speak. And so I do submit that to you for your consideration.
Thank you. So I'll actually acknowledge that I was conferring with the clerk at the moment that the point of order was referring to. So I feel not in a place to actually rule on the point of order, but I will just offer a reminder of reflecting on the chair is not is inappropriate. And I would also remind all those in the chamber that a concise point of order is appreciated, and the use of point of orders for furthering debate is also inappropriate. So with that, I will offer the floor to the Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson, and and as we all were sitting in here and watching an expert rag the puck in a couple pieces of points of order, an expert, the Premier is, the MLA for Fort Rouge, on breaching of rules. And so once again, multiple chances, comes in here, and basically, Honourable Chairperson, using his point of order time to rag the puck so he can get in various documents. And so maybe the Premier, after I'm done asking the question, might want to table the documents that he has been waiting and again ragging the puck with points of order to get in here, as opposed to allowing some questions that I'm bringing forward on behalf of Manitobans to the Premier during his Executive Council estimates time. So as I was saying, Honourable Chairperson, last spring I did mention that it's an absolute honor to be not only the MLA for Lac du Bonny, but also representing His Majesty's official opposition. And so again, I repeat that today, and I welcome all the chamber staff and the Premier, even the Premier, back to the committee. So given how tightly the Premier controls his message, this really offers a rare opportunity for transparency and accountability. With a little bit longer format than oral questions, and we get a chance to see whether the government's promises align with its actions. Manitobans deserve to know where their hard-earned money is going and whether the government is breaking their promises. We've heard many promises before and during the election and even after the election. What we've witnessed instead is a new government that had no plans. They had no plans ready. They spent 7.5 years in opposition, no plans, and have taken no action outside of leveraging taxpayer dollars to bolster their own image. And that's what we've seen, Honourable Chairperson, over the last year. We've seen a lot of bolstering of images, especially of the Premier's. The Premier's disinformation machine is able to spin pretty much anything as progress, when in reality it's nothing more than smoke and mirrors. Far more showman than statesman, and he continues to do that today, Honourable Chairperson. It is nice to hear today that the Premier has confirmed that the building of the Lac du Bonny Personal Care Home is going to cost $64 million. And so the constituents of Lac du Bonny and the roughly 200,000 Manitobans and visitors to our great province who sees that the Lac du Bonny constituency is their seasonal home as well, are going to be happy to hear that, and they'll be even happier once that shovel hits the ground. But I guess time will tell, and we'll see if the Premier holds to that $64 million personal care home. I'm not sure if he has cut the amount of beds that are in there, but we've already seen. I mean, the fact that the former PC government left a $373 million surplus, which is a good start, good starting point for the NDP. But what have they done? Under this Premier's leadership, they've squandered it. And again, no letter backing up the $64 million personal care home to Lac du Bonny. I don't believe. Anyways, maybe he might want to table that today, and I would be happy to correct the record The NDP inherited one of the fastest growing economies in the country. That economic momentum should have been a springboard to further prosperity. But again, this Premier, no plans. I'll ask the Premier to explain his recent public rhetoric about belt tightening, and specifically on which specific programs, projects in progress he plans on cutting in the upcoming year. They cut schools, they cut daycares, they cut summer programming for kids, they cut parks budgets, they cut the forest fire fighting budget, and much, much more. So again, to the Premier, what cuts should Manitobans expect in the upcoming year?
The Honourable First Minister.
Well, to date, we've repeatedly cut the size of the PC caucus and will continue doing so if there are any by-elections called by members leaving the leader of the opposition's team. And I only wish that the PCs had left office on March 31st, 2023. Just imagine how much we could have saved financially. Imagine how much better the society would have been last year had we avoided all the dog whistle politics of their stand firm billboards and the parental rights campaign. It's been said, not by me, but I got a lot of time for the person saying it and the thought behind it, that politicians have a moral responsibility not to elevate divisions within the society. And I think it would be a charitable lesson in brevity for us to say that the PCs failed in that task last year under the leadership of Heather Stephenson. I really wish they would have left office on that date, but of course they clung on right through the election, which resulted in their defeat, some inappropriate actions on behalf of third parties during the transition period. And then, of course, ultimately, they relinquished power at 9:49 a.m. on October 18th, 2023. And a new day began. And it's been very cool to see Manitobans greet a new administration with open hearts and open minds, and to have people, including longtime PC supporters, willing to work with us, willing to bring forward good ideas for the betterment of all Manitobans. And so it's been a very great year. And when it comes to the fiscal situation, immediately following the October 3rd election day, we started to get briefed on the transition. And the earliest briefings we received is that there was a fiscal crisis born out of irresponsible PC funding commitments that had not gone through the proper Treasury Board process. And as a result, it took a lot of heavy lifting, led by our finance minister and the deputy chair of the Treasury Board, to get us to the position where we are now, where even the rating agencies welcomed our first budget. And the talking points that the member opposite uses on fiscal matters might persuade newly elected PC MLAs, but those are the only people that I've heard talking about that. Everyone else recognizes that under the leadership of Heather Stephenson and the member opposite, the PCs were very fiscally irresponsible. And that matters to the people of Manitoba, because you need to be responsible with the books. You need to be responsible with public finances. Otherwise, you're always going to be going back to the working person and asking for more. And that's not right. So the members opposite, again, there is a sense of entitlement, I assume, a sense of urgency born out of the election. And all sorts of promises were made, bills were racked up, all sorts of double dipping into ISA and enabling appropriations. And here we are, even on what is sometimes referred to in political sciences as a brand strength of the PCs, we're cleaning up their mess. And so, you know, whether or not Manitobans credit our team, such as those ministers and many, many others, with doing this heavy lifting. It is important so that we can sustainably deliver health care over the long term. It is important so that we can ensure that new initiatives like free birth control and a school food program can be sustained over the long term. And I like the school food program so much because it is a generational investment in the social determinants of health. It is a generational investment in the future of young people in Manitoba. And I hope that the members opposite don't cut it the next time that they're in office, because I do think that this one will produce results over the long term, much after our time in office. And of course, a balanced budget helps to ensure its continuity.
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
So unfortunately, the Premier, I'm not sure if he doesn't have his handlers kicking around and sort of giving him the hook of the action and no action when he should or should not be speaking. But we've seen lots of that over the last year. So, Honourable Chairperson, so the question was in regards to the various different programs and that the Premier, what is he going to be cutting when we talk about this belt tightening that the Premier likes to use? So we're going to assume that he's making cuts all across the board, and he's also going to be raising taxes on Manitobans. Those hardworking Manitobans, he's going to be raising taxes. What he could do, he could be raising the economy, growing the economy, but he chooses not to. Why? Honourable Chairperson, why? Because he's got no plan. You're in caucus with him. So, I don't know. It's unfortunate. I feel sorry for you. But again, making sure for the record that the NDP didn't win the election. We lost it, and we are going to turn things around for the 2027 election. Unless, of course, this Premier is carrying on with his next ladder climbing and this self-serving momentum of this Premier, where he's going to want to go to federal politics. But time will tell. Honourable Chairperson, let's talk about the lack of progress, or rather, the NDP's very generous, dishonest interpretation of progress. The Premier and his disinformation team work very hard to spin their lack of results into something that sounds like a success story. But when we dig deeper, what we find is a government that has coasted along by collecting the fruit of the trees planted by our PC government, while still blaming their predecessors for anything that they are failing to address. They're in government, but they still act like an opposition party with their insults and political attacks. It's getting old, and it's time for the Premier to start governing. The NDP made specific promises with regards to things like jobs and growth to gain power. They then inherited the third fastest growing economy in Canada and had an audited surplus to work with. Since October 2023, there's been no net increase in full-time employment in Manitoba. Let that sink in. No new full-time jobs in nearly a year, despite promises to create thousands of them. Just a bit behind pace. But what should you expect when the Premier is truly more showman than statesman? There are plenty of tricks up his sleeve, but after he leaves the stage, Manitobans are left questioning the act, and they talk to each other. They can tell that the job market is stagnant, and they read the news stories about big businesses investing elsewhere and closing their doors in his own constituency. Everyone knows that the NDP's tax increases have made Manitoba less competitive, and it's only going to get worse. We can't retain and attract talent or investment as long as the NDP are in government. One of the first mistakes the NDP made taking office was disbanding the previous PC government's Economic Development Board. It's a huge mistake. The comparison is actually staggering. We, when we were in government, fostered economic growth, and the NDP is standing still, letting opportunities pass them by. Multiple of them, many of them. The only thing progressing under the NDP is government debt, and we will soon be seeing major tax increases. So, Honourable Speaker, my question is for the Premier according to the book by John Lawrence Reynolds, which the Premier has accepted awards for and claimed as his own work. The Premier had trouble with various different substances during his undergrad when he apparently learned economics. So forgive him for not knowing the answer to this question, but it must be asked for the record. And Honourable Speaker, after the Premier answers this question, I'm going to turn the floor over to an independent. Is he going to be cutting more projects, and priorities, or all the above, Honourable Chairperson?
The Honourable First Minister.
Well, I'm not surprised. Member opposite is yielding his time. And it's not even Wednesday. It's the first day of the week after the long weekend, and he's already yielding his time. Anyway, on the economy, good news to share. Employment is up. More than 5,000 jobs created in Manitoba last month. Building permits up, a 16.5% increase in July. Motor vehicle sales, new vehicles, this one probably hurts the members opposite, up 18.5%. In fact, when we speak to the people who sell cars and trucks in Manitoba, they're not just happy with the boom that's going on with business, they're very appreciative of specific steps that our administration has taken, in particular the EV rebate, which provides a rebate not only for new electric vehicles, but also for used, so that there's help for people across the affordability spectrum. There's a boom going on in that sector of the economy for sure. Food and drinking places, bars, restaurants, that's up 5.6%. Manufacturing up as well. Retail, that's up too. The only thing that's down is inflation. Inflation has considerably improved over the PC time in office. Again, it may pain some of the undergraduate progressive economics profs that I had once upon a time, but it has definitely been shown this past year in office that if you cut a consumer-facing tax, such as the gas tax, that it does actually slow inflation. We saw that on January 1 of this year. And gas prices in Manitoba are more than 30 cents cheaper year over year, particularly in September, from when the PCs left office to a year later with us here. So again, gas tax had an impact, but of course the macroeconomic effect of the policy lever that our government has pulled has also had an impact. When we think about the future of the economy, the members opposite did not have an economic plan. I traveled the province extensively. I spoke to the chambers of commerce, I spoke to the Business Council, I spoke to business leaders in every corner of the province, and I would ask, with a dramatic pause at the end of my query, what is the PC economic development plan? And no matter where I went, that's exactly what I heard. Silence. Nobody could articulate an economic plan under the former Heather Stephenson government. And so I was elected on a promise to bring forward a very solid plan, which is to continue building the diversified strength of our existing economic sectors, to lean in to standing up a low carbon, future-focused economy in the province, and also to engage in workforce development, which is to ensure that folks in historically marginalized communities and regions of Manitoba, that not only were ignored by the PC, Brian Pallister, and Heather Stephenson administrations, but for far too long were overlooked over the course of Manitoba history. And so when we look at that three-pronged approach of diversified strength, low carbon future, workforce development, finally, the business leaders tell us there's a government in Manitoba with a plan. There's a plan for growing the economy. And with a great deal of humility, I would like to acknowledge folks from all different walks of life. Business leaders, community leaders, academics, thought leaders, people from social sectors who have taken up the mantle and have worked with our administration. It's been very amazing to see the caliber and quality of people who stood up to participate in the Premier's Business and Jobs Council. It's been very awesome to see people step up to participate in the Minister of Infrastructure's Blue Ribbon Infrastructure Panel. And as we move into this second throne speech, there will be many more exciting pieces of news for us to share as well too.
The Honourable Member for Tyndall Park.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson, and I'd like to thank my colleague, the official opposition leader, interim leader, for some time, and thank the Premier for his time here this afternoon as well. I know when I reflect back on the spring, we were doing estimates right here in this very room, and the Premier and I were able to work through quite a few questions, which I really appreciate and hope to be able to continue to do here today. Just a few general questions, Honourable Chairperson. The Premier will often speak to the importance of a healthy democracy, and I'm hoping that he'll speak a little bit to the importance of legislation moving through the House to best represent all Manitobans, why this is important, why all political parties should be included in this important process, the process of first reading, second reading, committee to third reading, and just his opinions on it.
The Honourable First Minister.
Yeah, thanks. It's an important question, as are all aspects of upholding democracy in Manitoba. When we last sat, meaning not necessarily the last day of estimates, but the last sitting day of the spring sitting, the liaison for the military, the member for Waverley, and I left immediately following a question period and after a few short tying up of loose ends to go to Normandy and visiting the D-Day commemorations. 80th anniversary was one of the great honors of my life, and it was a trip of a lifetime. Not because of the amazing people or scenery or any of those things, but because of talking to the veterans and to meet Manitobans from Selkirk, from Winnipeg, from other parts of the province who ran across the beaches to defeat the Nazis when they were 19 years old, 20 years old. It blows one's mind to think about it, not least of all because I have a 19-year-old son. And so to reflect on what they did and how I view my own children, and to imagine what it must have been like for parents and for friends and others to know that that was happening in the name of democracy is certainly a sobering and important reminder for all of us. The government was elected to pursue a policy, budgetary and legislative agenda, which we have begun to implement and enact. And so obviously the government's legislative agenda kind of carries the day, the budget being probably, I would say, the single biggest focus among the many various legislative apparati that we have at our disposal. Of course, we're in Committee of Supply as part of that budgetary process, but it also includes the budget implementation bill, the budget speech, and the successive stages of the committee that will go through. Private members have, including the opposition, I would say, have a role to play. Government members as well too. And independent members, I think it goes without saying, given the context of who's asked the question, have an important role to play in bringing forward new ideas, new priorities, food for thought, And of course, when an independent member can win support for an idea, then to see their legislative priorities and agendas, as it were, win support in the House. So the member brought forward a bill in the spring that I recognize has an important public policy consideration at the heart of it. And so, as I said in the spring, we would bring that to committee, because I do see a public good in having members of the public share their perspectives and share their views on why this bill is important. And when did that committee happen? Last week? Last Thursday. I believe last Thursday is when that hearing happened. So again, you know, we followed through on the commitment to the member. This being something that has, in previous engagement in the public sphere, raised questions around the interaction between government and the independent judiciary. I think that it's important for us to proceed with, well, this is going to be an unfortunate pun here, but like a very judicious approach. And as a result of that, I know that the Attorney General has been doing a lot of work on this subject, broadly speaking, if we could say that. And from what I understand, because we do recognize the important role that the independent member for Timmins Park has, I believe that there's been engagement between the Attorney General and herself on this topic. And so we've seen the bill receive support, we've called it to committee, and now I think with the resources of government and having access to, you know, counsel in various forms, including the literal meaning of the term counsel when we're talking about legislation, but also just, you know, counsel in terms of people with insight, able to offer advice. I do think that it's important for the Attorney General and Minister of Justice to spend some time working on this. I guess there's a bit more I can share with the member, but my time is drawing near, so happy to expand on that, but you know, I think that gives a start as to where we're at.
The honourable member for Tyndall Park.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson, and I do mean it very, very sincerely. I appreciated the Premier's comments last spring during estimates, as I do believe that's why the bill was able to move forward to committee. And committee was an incredible experience. I hope he's had the opportunity to chat maybe with the Minister of Justice, or just to refer to Hansard even, with the testimonies and the stories that were shared and the much needed timeliness of this legislation. And this sentiment was shared by everyone around the table, by the NDP, by the PCs, by independents as well. Honourable Chairperson, every single party, political party in this House has supported the legislation, whether that be at second reading, whether that be through comments and questions, sentiments and thoughts shared at committee. We've even seen it supported at a national level in different provinces as well, Honourable Chairperson. This legislation has been, or very similar legislation has been introduced in this House previously by various parties, so we see it going across party lines. I've had the opportunity to speak with the Justice Minister a couple of times today. Today was an important day because we know by the end of the day, if there are going to be report stage amendments, they have to be brought forward, at least some sort of notification for them. And after speaking with the Justice Minister, he did share with me that the government didn't have any amendments for the legislation. So I'm choosing to see that in a positive light, that the government likes the legislation, they approve of the legislation. It was drafted through many, many hours of consultation, Honourable Chairperson, and it was drafted based off former pieces of legislation, some that had previously been introduced by our current Minister families. So again, I believe that the current government will view this legislation as a positive step, and my hope is that they will continue to see it through and move it on to third reading for a vote here in the House, Honourable Chairperson. So my question for the Premier is, will he consider bringing this piece of legislation to a vote on November 7th?
The Honourable First Minister.
I appreciate that the member opposite has acknowledged the Minister of Family's work on this topic as well. I know that it was a personal and is a personal priority for her, and something that she's devoted a lot of time to, going back, I guess it's 2017, if I recall correctly. And so some 7 years or more on the subject is important, and so for the member opposite to recognize that is important too, because it shows a bipartisan or cross-partisan spirit, which I think is important for us to move forward here. I do also recognize the work that the member opposite put into bringing participants out to the committee. I think there were some very important voices there, and I know that our minister, Minister of Justice, the Attorney General, there in his ministerial capacity, to be clear, were really moved and really honored by the words that were shared there. And among many other things, including, you know, the reminder of this topic, there is also, I guess, a very, very direct imperative there of the important work to continue ending intimate partner violence, and to do the work of the missing and murdered Indigenous women, girls, Two-Spirit Plus calls to justice from the inquiry. And so we're working on a comprehensive approach. We're working on the prevention initiatives. We have $20 million in the budget this year for the MMIWG2S Plus strategy, 15 of which went to establishing a foundation, and that is separate from searching the landfill. We have been engaging on this topic. I know that it's an important one. The member has brought forward a few times, and obviously with the committee participants has been doing a lot of legwork with stakeholders and other voices in the community, including the jurisdictional scans. I can tell you that I personally had a few conversations about people with, I would say, some pretty serious expertise on the matter. And just sharing for information purposes with the committee, one thing that was shared with me is that the work that the member is calling on the judiciary to undertake is happening. And perhaps in the future we could provide some opportunities, not with government, but rather to just facilitate a conversation with her and folks from, I guess, the other very old fancy building on the other side of Broadway, to be able to hear maybe directly from them about some of the initiatives that are going on regarding training and formation and things like that. And so that was an important piece of information for me to hear, because that doesn't always come through in some of the public coverage of the topic. But that's not to say that everything that needs to be done is being done. Rather, I would recognize, especially given the committee voices that we heard last week, that there is an important continuance and opportunity for further engagement on this. So when it comes to that, yeah, I agree with the member for Tyndall Park. I think our team agrees too about the importance of this as a priority. In government now, you know, we're weighing, you know, some of these comments that I'm putting on the record here, additional considerations that I think are bandied about within the Department of Justice. And it's important for us to balance all of these things when we take a look at passing bills into law here in Manitoba. So I know that the member opposite had a very recent, relatively speaking at least, engagement with the Minister of Justice on this topic. So perhaps before providing an answer on the next steps here, I'll take this away and have a conversation with the Minister so I can get a better sense of where his thinking is at, you know, how his deliberations are going, so to speak. But we know that there's systemic change required. We know that there's investments in community supports that are required, health, mental health, addictions, economic, all sorts of investments that are needed for us to grapple with these questions. We're moving in that direction, but we also, I think, recognize the importance of the work that the member for Tyndall Park is doing as well, too.
The honourable member for Tyndall Park.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson, and this will be my last question here this afternoon. I do appreciate that the Premier is taking away from this conversation a new conversation to have with the Justice Minister. Again, I spoke with him on a couple of occasions earlier today and walked away from the conversation feeling like perhaps this legislation will be moving forward. So again, my hope is that he'll take this back to the Justice Minister and confer on what the Justice Minister is perhaps thinking on this legislation. I do think it's really, really important, and I know our Premier has spoken on this quite a bit. The importance of democracy is huge here in Manitoba, throughout Canada, arguably all around the world. And for one of 57 MLAs not to have their legislation brought forward, but to have both legislation from the PCs and NDP legislation move forward, it does raise a bit of a conflict. I think it's really important that this government allow for legislation to move through the process that it is intended to move through. When I think about each and every single MLA representing over 20,000 people, these individuals, these constituents of ours, they deserve to be heard, and that means allowing legislation to move forward. I think that it's important for the presenters, for all of those who took the time, all of the organizations who took the time, who contributed to this legislation, who presented at committee, waited long hours. We were at committee past 10 p.m. Honorable Chairperson, I think it's important, and we owe it to them to at least bring the piece of legislation to a vote. Why would we not do this? Why would we have this legislation go through first reading, second reading, committee of a whole going late into the evening hours, but then not have a vote on it? I think it's very, very important that it does move forward, and I am appealing to the Premier to do this. I'll leave my remarks at that.
The Honourable First Minister.
No, I really thank the member opposite for her statement. And like I said, I'll take that bit of encouragement over to the Minister of Justice and have a conversation about it with him.
The Honourable Member for Fort Garry.
As MLAs, and all MLAs are required to complete a mandatory respectful workplace seminar. And of course, I personally have completed one after the 2019 election, and again after the 2023 election. On January 19, 2024, the Manitoba NDP caucus met and had a respectful workplace seminar at that time. The Premier will recall he was not present. I'm wondering if the Premier can share why he wasn't present on that day and what date the Premier completed the mandatory respectful workplace seminar that all MLAs are required to complete.
The Honorable First Minister.
Well, after a lot of swiping through my calendar on my official government phone, looking at the calendar app, I think I have an answer for the member opposite, but I'm just going to take a bit of time to verify the specific date in question so that I can provide accurate information to the member. So as a result, I'll take that question under advisement for the time being, and simply say that an answer on the date aspect of the question will be forthcoming. In terms of the rest of the question that the member posits here, there were, of course, training sessions offered for members of the government caucus, the opposition caucus, independent members, etc. And this being a very, very busy time for our government within the first few months of administration, there were subsequent follow-up training sessions offered to ministers of the Crown in particular, but to other folks. It was open to other folks who, for whatever reason, would not be able to attend one of the other sessions that were in place. So I took advantage of that generous offer from the Ledge Assembly folks who deliver this program, and I attended a session with other MLAs, and I found it to be a productive exercise. It's always interesting to work through the specific examples that are shared within that training. And of course, having been sworn in and operating in government for a little while, though not a long time, by that point, of course, there were also, I guess, additional considerations that, you know, were being discussed, and new considerations that were being asked of the people delivering this training. So I was a participant in this in 2019. Prior to that election, we did a lot of work internal to our side of the House to bring in systematized and informed by experts in the field human resource approach within the NDP team. And we did both our own, prior to 2019, we did our own training in which we hired a facilitator. But we also participated in one which was led by the Legislative Assembly. And so as it stands, we've witnessed successive iterations of this program. And in the most recent iteration of that, I had the ability to participate in it as a member of the government for the first time, which of course brought with it, I guess, an additional dimension of consideration when we were participating with the members both present, but also, I guess, the facilitators. To a person, I find them to be a thoughtful bunch. We ask serious questions, and you know, we're bringing forward scenarios that aren't always contemplated in other venues in which this training is delivered. We live and we work in a unique environment, and of course that certainly holds true not only of this chamber, but also of the various different venues in which we serve our political and legislative functions. And so, yeah, I'm very grateful for this training. You know, you're kind of hustle and bustle of daily life, work life, you go in here and there, and then you have some time to sit and contemplate some bigger questions. And so we had the ability to do that on that day. And I I appreciate the opportunity provided by the Assembly for us to participate.
The honourable member for Fort Garry.
Just want the record to reflect that it took the Premier 4 minutes to come up with the answer. I'm taking it under advisement. Now, on July 6, 2023, Heather Stephenson told Manitobans she would not fund the landfill search. Same date, I tweeted my support for the landfill search, and I criticized the former Premier for her decision. About 10 minutes later, after I posted, the Director of Communications called me up, and the conversation went a little bit like this. What are you, stupid? The leader doesn't want to search the landfill. And I was told that I wouldn't be allowed to tweet further about the landfill. Now, subsequently, in a caucus meeting, the Premier advised not only myself, but the rest of the caucus, that it was in fact David Eby, the Premier of BC, who convinced the Premier to search the landfill and that it was the right thing to do. So my question to the Premier is, why didn't he want to search the landfill? And how many months did it take before he changed his mind?
The Honourable First Minister.
The families of Morgan Harris and Mercedes Myron are the people who convinced me to search the landfill. I believe it was in either late November or early December 2022. And there was an announcement about a search not happening immediately. And Cambria Harris, I remember memorably said something to the effect, and I'm paraphrasing here, but I think it's close to the proper verbiage, that when the comment was made that a search was not feasible, she asked, are our lives not feasible? And so I don't have the media coverage of the following period, but I could tell you that it would have been at Heather Stephenson's final State of the Province address in front of the Winnipeg Chamber of Commerce that I was asked about this. So that would likely have been early December, probably the last sitting day, or whatever that was, in 2022, in which I was asked about this in front of the media. And again, I paraphrase because I don't recall the exact verbiage that I used, but I said I've been moved by the words of the daughters. And so we offered our support there. Another significant inflection point happened in July 2023, where some colleagues and I invited in family members and leadership from First Nations community into what was then my office. I think it was 172 in the building, the opposition leader's office, and we smoked the pipe together and had the opportunity to hear from them their priorities and to tell them in the right way, meaning after listening, after having the opportunity to sit with them in a ceremonial context, but also in a social context and get to know them a bit, that yeah, we were willing to not just support them in their desire to have a landfill search, but we were willing to go to the wall on this issue in the election. And we did. And everyone on our team can tell you that this was a tough issue for us. Tough for many of us on a personal level, because obviously there's a personal dimension to having not just the dignity and humanity of Indigenous women in particular, but Indigenous people generally, used as a wedge political issue. But also it was tough because when we would talk to people on the doorstep about this, often the reaction we would get could be hostile. And we were able to prevail. The PCs chose to wage a very ugly campaign, a very divisive campaign on this issue in particular, but also on the issue of parental rights. And following the election, was happy to invite the families in again to smoke the pipe again at my new office, 204, and to recommit to them now with the election having been decided that we were going to make good on our commitment to them. That began a series of messages and engagement with the federal government and the city and First Nations leaders. And earlier this year, we followed through with $20 million in the budget to move ahead with the search of the Prairie Green landfill. I would be happy to share more about David Eby in a subsequent answer, but I think the most important thing I can say now is that we smoked the pipe together a third time at Prairie Green and indicated in the most direct way possible that Prairie Green is being searched.
The honourable member for Fort Garry.
I want to thank the Premier for his candor in admitting that he initially was opposed to the landfill search. He didn't answer as to the reasons why he was opposed to the landfill search. He did state in his answer that it was Cambria Harris that finally convinced him that it was the right thing to do, and it was that conversation that was the tipping point. I'm wondering if the Premier can share with us what was the date of that meeting with Cambria Harris that changed the Premier from being opposed to the landfill to now being a supporter of the landfill. And I'll remind the Premier, it was August 9th, 2023, when he made his first official announcement that he was going to search the landfill. That didn't happen prior to that date.
The Honourable First Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't have the date of Cambria Harris's comments about are our lives not feasible, but it would have been in late December or late November or early December 2022. I can tell you that I responded publicly on the record December 8th, 2022. And as I outlined there, we've always put the families first on this issue. In addition to not having the PCs, I guess, politicize and use these family members who are related to the murder victims of like a terrible, terrible crime, one of the worst crimes in Manitoba's history, committed by a serial killer against whom conviction was secured. You know, I'm loath to have this issue politicized further. And so as a result, when we engage with this, we engage with it seriously, substantively. We put ceremony first, we put the families first. And throughout a good chunk of this past year, 2024, I had to go out in public and, you know, be criticized by people I care a lot about, hear criticism from these very same families on occasion, commit over and over again that we were going to search Prairie Green, but without saying in too fine a way to also say that we needed to respect the matter that was before the courts and to allow that to proceed. When the verdict was rendered, I believe it was the next day or two that the families were here to hear our plan, worked into granular detail of how to search Prairie Green, fully costed and to be delivered in a fiscally responsible manner. And so at their request, if you visit Prairie Green today, there is a healing space for them. There's a search facility being stood up. We're on the precipice of moving material from the target zone of the landfill. But of course, as always, I will hold back further detail until we have an opportunity to ensure that we put the families first in providing further updates on the matter. Their wishes have to be paramount, and they always will when it comes to our administration. So we've been listening to the families' voices. We've been supporting them through the election. We contested a very cynical campaign from the PCs and emerged victorious, thanks to the good hearts of the people of Manitoba and their commitment to healthcare. And we have made good on standing up a search of the Prairie Green landfill. And we will continue to put the families first. And hopefully, even though there's no guarantee of success, I do pray that we can deliver what they want, which is for us to have 2 funerals with the remains of their loved ones. Hopefully we can do that very, very soon. But where we go from here is out of our hands.
The hour being 5 p.m., committee rise and call in the speaker. The hour being 5, this House is adjourned and stands adjourned until 1:30 p.m. tomorrow.